There is something about Scorpio that most people never quite understand, and honestly, most Scorpios never fully understand it about themselves either. You spend so much of your life believing that you are in control, that every wall you build, every silence you hold, every distance you create is a sign of your strength. But what if the very thing you call control is actually something far deeper, something far more vulnerable than you have ever been willing to admit? What if what you have been calling control this entire time is actually protection? Not power, but fear wearing the mask of power. Not strategy, but a wound that learned how to plan ahead so it would never have to feel that kind of pain again. This is a conversation most Scorpios avoid because the moment you start pulling at this thread, everything you thought you knew about yourself begins to shift. The image you built, the identity you clung to, the story you told yourself about being the one who never needs anyone. It all starts to crack. And that cracking is not weakness. That cracking is the beginning of something real. So if you are willing to stay, if you are willing to hear what this energy is actually revealing right now, then this might be one of the most important messages you have ever encountered. Because what is coming is not just insight. It is an invitation to stop performing strength and start actually living it. Stay with me through every single section because each one builds on the last, and the final piece ties everything together in a way you will not expect. Tip 1. The silence you use as a shield was never really silence at all. Most Scorpios pride themselves on being quiet, on being the one who watches, who observes, who says nothing while everyone else reveals too much. You sit in rooms and you read people like open books, and you tell yourself that your silence is your greatest weapon. And in many ways it has served you well. It has kept you safe. It has kept people at a distance. It has given you the illusion of being untouchable. But here is the truth that this energy is revealing right now. That silence was never really silence. It was a scream turned inward. It was every word you wanted to say but swallowed because you were afraid of what would happen if people actually heard you. Think about that for a moment. Think about all the times you held back, not because you had nothing to say, but because you had too much to say and you did not trust what would happen if it came out. You did not trust that the other person could hold it. You did not trust that your emotions would not overwhelm the room. You did not trust that you would still be loved if people saw the full, unfiltered version of who you are. And so you called it control. You called it maturity. You called it being the bigger person. But what it actually was, what it has always been, is a defense mechanism born from a very old wound. A wound that told you early on that your intensity was too much, that your feelings were too big, that the safest thing you could do was keep everything locked inside and let people see only what you decided to show them. This pattern did not start recently. For most Scorpios, this goes back to childhood, to a moment or a series of moments where you expressed something real, something raw, and the response you got was not understanding. It was rejection. It was dismissal. It was someone making you feel like your depth was a burden. And from that point forward, you made a decision, probably without even realizing it. You decided that you would never be that vulnerable again. You decided that silence was safer than honesty, that distance was better than closeness, that control was the only way to survive in a world that did not know what to do with someone like you. But survival is not the same thing as living, and this is the season where that distinction is going to become impossible to ignore. The silence you have been using as a shield is starting to suffocate you. The walls you built to keep others out are now keeping you trapped inside. And the control you cling to so desperately is the very thing that is preventing the love, the connection, the intimacy you actually crave from ever reaching you. This does not mean you need to become someone who shares everything with everyone. That is not what this is about. This is about recognizing that there is a difference between choosing when to speak and being afraid to speak at all. One is discernment. The other is a cage. And right now, this energy is asking you to be honest with yourself about which one you have actually been living in. Because the moment you can admit that your silence has been more about fear than about strategy, everything begins to shift. The armor starts to loosen. The walls start to come down, not all at once, but slowly, carefully, in a way that feels safe enough to sustain. And on the other side of that process is something you have been wanting for a very long time but have been too afraid to reach for. The experience of being fully known and fully accepted at the same time. Tip 2. Your need to know everything before you trust is not wisdom. It is a wound. Scorpios are known for being investigators of the human soul. You dig, you question, you test, you probe, and you do not stop until you feel like you have seen every hidden corner of a person before you let them in. You tell yourself this is because you are wise. You tell yourself this is because you have been burned before and you learned your lesson. You tell yourself this is because trust must be earned and you simply have high standards. And while all of that may be partially true, there is a deeper layer here that most Scorpios refuse to look at. The need to know everything before you trust someone is not actually wisdom. It is hypervigilance. It is the behavior of someone who was hurt so deeply that they now treat every new person as a potential threat until proven otherwise. Think about what that means for the people trying to love you. They walk into the relationship and immediately feel like they are on trial. They feel watched. They feel tested. They feel like nothing they do is ever quite enough to earn your full trust because the truth is, for many Scorpios, nothing ever is enough. The goalpost keeps moving. The tests keep getting harder. And the person on the other side eventually gets exhausted, not because they were unworthy of your trust, but because the level of proof you required was never actually achievable by any human being. This is one of the most painful patterns in the Scorpio experience because it creates the very outcome you are trying to prevent. You are so afraid of being betrayed that you build an obstacle course of tests and requirements, and when the other person eventually fails or gives up, you point to that as evidence that you were right not to trust them. But you were not right. You were just repeating this cycle. You were creating the rejection you were trying to avoid, and then using that rejection to justify building the walls even higher next time. This is not wisdom. This is a wound running the show and calling itself intelligence. Real trust, the kind that actually leads to deep, lasting connection, requires a leap. It requires a moment where you do not have all the information, where you do not have every guarantee, where you cannot predict every possible outcome, and you step forward anyway. Not blindly, not recklessly, but with the understanding that vulnerability is not the same thing as weakness, and that some things in life can only be discovered by people who are willing to risk being wrong. Right now, this energy is pushing you toward that edge. It is asking you to consider the possibility that your need for certainty is actually a prison, that your refusal to trust without total proof is keeping you from the very connections that would heal the wound that made you this way in the first place. And the hardest part of this realization is that it means some of the distance you have experienced in your relationships was not because other people were untrustworthy. It was because you made it impossible for them to reach you. Not intentionally, not maliciously, but the result was the same. And sitting with that truth, really sitting with it, is one of the bravest things a Scorpio can do. Because it means admitting that the fortress you built to protect yourself has also been your greatest source of loneliness. And that admission, as painful as it is the first real step towards something different. If what you're hearing feels accurate, imagine what could happen if you applied this energy intentionally for 21 consecutive days. That's exactly what the 21-day program in the pinned comment is built for. Daily guidance, focused direction, and real momentum. If you're tired of staying in the same cycle, this is your structure. Tip 3. You confuse emotional intensity with emotional depth, and it is costing you. There is a common misconception among Scorpios, and it is one that shapes almost every relationship you enter. You believe that because you feel things intensely, you automatically feel things deeply. But intensity and depth are not the same thing. And confusing the two has been quietly sabotaging your connections for longer than you realize. Intensity is the fire that flares up when you feel threatened, when you feel jealous, when you feel abandoned, when you feel out of control. It is the rush of emotion that takes over your body and convinces you that whatever you are feeling in that moment is the most important thing in the world. Depth, on the other hand, is the ability to sit with an emotion without being consumed by it. It is the willingness to examine where a feeling comes from rather than just reacting to it. It is the capacity to hold space for complexity, to recognize that you can feel hurt and still understand the other person, to feel angry and still choose compassion. Most Scorpios live in intensity and call it depth. You feel a surge of jealousy and you act on it immediately, interrogating your partner, withdrawing your affection, creating a test to see if they will chase you. You feel a wave of anger and you either explode or go completely cold, cutting someone off without explanation, vanishing into silence, punishing them with your absence. You feel a flood of love and you dive in headfirst, merging your identity with the other person, making them your entire world, losing yourself in the process. All of these are intense experiences. None of them are deep ones. Depth requires something that intensity does not. It requires pause. It requires the willingness to sit in the discomfort of an emotion without immediately acting on it. It requires asking yourself questions like, why am I really feeling this? What is this actually about? Is this about what is happening right now, or is this about something that happened a long time ago that I never fully processed? These are the questions that Scorpios are uniquely equipped to ask because you have the emotional intelligence for it. You have the insight. You have the capacity for self-examination that most other signs simply do not possess. But that capacity has been buried under layers of reactivity, under the habit of treating every emotional trigger as an emergency that requires an immediate response. This energy right now is calling you to slow down, not to feel less, never to feel less, but to feel more intentionally. To let the emotion arise without immediately building a story around it. To sit with the discomfort long enough to understand what it is actually trying to tell you before you act on it. Because when you operate from intensity alone, you make decisions you regret. You say things you cannot take back. You push people away who were never actually trying to hurt you. You destroy things that were still growing because you mistook growing pains for betrayal. But when you learn to move from depth instead of intensity, everything changes. Your relationships become more stable because people feel safe with you. Your decisions become wiser because they are not driven by panic. Your emotional world becomes richer because you are no longer just riding the waves. You are actually understanding the ocean. And understanding the ocean, truly understanding it, is the most Scorpio thing you can possibly do. It is where your real power lies, not in the storm, but in the stillness beneath it. Tip 4. The people you cut off were not all enemies, and you know it. Scorpio is famous for cutting people off, for the ability to walk away from someone and never look back, for the cold finality of a Scorpio who has decided that you no longer exist. And the world admires this about you. Social media celebrates it. People call it strength. People call it self-respect. People call it knowing your worth. But deep down, in the quiet hours of the night when you are alone with your thoughts, you know the truth. Not everyone you cut off deserved it. Not every bridge you burn needed to burn. And not every door you slam shut was protecting you from danger. Some of those doors were just protecting you from feeling. This is one of the hardest truths for Scorpios to face because it challenges the narrative you have built your identity around. You are the one who does not tolerate disrespect. You are the one who walks away when others would stay and beg. You are the one who chooses yourself no matter what. And those are real qualities. Those are genuine strengths when applied correctly. But when those same qualities are driven by fear instead of discernment, they become weapons that you use against the people who are actually trying to love you. Think about the friend who said something that hurt you once, just once, and instead of telling them how you felt, you simply disappeared. Think about the family member who made a mistake, a human mistake, and instead of giving them the chance to make it right, you froze them out completely. Think about the partner who was imperfect, who stumbled, who did not always know the right thing to say, but who was trying, genuinely trying, and you left because trying was not the same as being perfect. These are the ghosts that haunt the Scorpio heart. Not the people who truly betrayed you, because those losses are clean and clear and you do not second-guess them. But the people who simply fell short of an impossible standard, the ones you discarded not because they were bad for you but because keeping them close meant staying vulnerable, and vulnerability was the one thing you could not afford. This pattern is rooted in something very specific. For Scorpios, the pain of being disappointed by someone you trusted is so excruciating that your nervous system developed a shortcut. Instead of risking disappointment, you eliminate the possibility altogether. You cut the person off before they can let you down. You leave before you can be left. You reject before you can be rejected. And every time you do this, you feel a brief rush of power, a sense of control, a confirmation that you are the one making the decisions. But that rush fades quickly, and what is left is the emptiness. The silence of a life that is safe but not full. The loneliness of someone who is surrounded by walls and has forgotten how to open a door. Right now, this energy is not asking you to go back to people who genuinely harmed you. That is not what this is about. This is about being honest with yourself about the difference between people who hurt you and people who scared you. Because those are not the same thing. And treating them the same way has cost you more than you are willing to admit. The courage to stay, to communicate, to give someone a second chance, that is not weakness. That is the deepest kind of strength a Scorpio can develop. And developing it will change your life in ways you cannot yet imagine. Tip 5. You use loyalty as a test instead of a gift, and it is exhausting everyone around you. Scorpios value loyalty above almost everything else. It is one of your defining traits, one of the qualities that makes you such a powerful friend, partner, and protector. When a Scorpio is loyal to you, you have an ally for life. Someone who will fight for you, defend you, stand beside you when everyone else has walked away. But here is the shadow side that this energy is illuminating right now. You do not just value loyalty, you weaponize it. You turn it into a test, a measuring stick, a scorecard that you keep in your mind, tracking every action, every word, every perceived slight, constantly evaluating whether the people in your life are meeting your standard. And that standard, if you are being completely honest with yourself, is almost impossibly high. You expect people to prove their loyalty to you in ways that you rarely, if ever, communicate. You want them to read your mind. You want them to sense when you are hurting without you having to say it. You want them to choose you without being asked, defend you without being prompted, prioritize you without being told that you need it. And when they fail to do any of these things, when they miss a signal, when they make a choice that puts their own needs first for a moment, you take it as evidence. Evidence that they are not truly loyal. Evidence that they do not really care. Evidence that you are, once again, the one who gives more than they receive. But the problem is not that the people in your life are disloyal. The problem is that you are measuring loyalty by a standard that no one knows about because you refuse to share it. You keep the rules hidden and then punish people for not following them. You expect mind readers and then feel betrayed when you get human beings instead. This is one of the most isolating patterns in the Scorpio experience because it creates a dynamic where you are constantly disappointed, constantly keeping score, constantly living in a state of quiet resentment that builds and builds until it either explodes or leads to another cutoff. And the people around you, the ones who genuinely care about you, are left confused and exhausted because they can feel your withdrawal, they can sense your judgment, but they have no idea what they did wrong. Real loyalty, the kind that lasts, the kind that builds something meaningful, is not a test. It is a gift. It is something you offer freely, without conditions, without scorecards, without hidden expectations that the other person has to guess at. And it is also something you receive gracefully, recognizing that people show loyalty in different ways, that someone can love you deeply and still not express it the way you want them to. This does not make their love less real. It just makes it different from what you imagined. And learning to accept love in the form it is actually offered rather than rejecting it because it does not match the form you expected. That is one of the most transformative shifts a Scorpio can make. Right now, this energy is asking you to put down the scorecard, to stop keeping track, to stop testing people and start trusting the evidence that is already right in front of you. Because the loyalty you seek is often already there. You have just been too busy measuring it to feel it. Tip 6. Your fear of being seen is greater than your fear of being alone. This might be the most counterintuitive thing you hear today. But stay with me because this is where the real transformation begins. Most people assume that Scorpios are afraid of being alone. They see your intensity in relationships, your all-or-nothing approach to love, your tendency to merge completely with the people you care about, and they assume that loneliness is your greatest fear. But that is not it. Not really. Your greatest fear, the one that drives almost every pattern we have talked about so far, is not being alone. It is being seen. Truly, completely, fully seen. Seen without the armor. Seen without the mystery. Seen without the carefully curated image that you present to the world. Because if someone sees all of you, every flaw, every insecurity, every doubt, every soft and tender place you have spent your whole life hiding, then they have power over you. And power in someone else's hands is the thing that terrifies you most. This is why you control information so carefully. This is why you reveal yourself in calculated doses, always keeping something back, always maintaining a reserve of mystery that gives you the upper hand. This is why you ask questions but rarely answer them. Why you listen intently but deflect when the conversation turns to your own inner world. You are not being private. You are being protective. And the thing you are protecting is not information. It is your vulnerability. The soft, aching, deeply human part of you that just wants to be loved without having to earn it, without having to prove it, without having to be perfect to deserve it. But here is what this energy is showing you right now. Being seen is not the same thing as being exposed. Exposure is what happens when someone takes your vulnerability and uses it against you. Being seen is what happens when someone takes your vulnerability and holds it with care. And you have been so focused on preventing exposure that you have also been preventing the experience of being truly seen. They are not the same door. They are not the same risk. But your nervous system treats them identically because somewhere in your past, vulnerability and punishment were paired together, and your brain never learned to separate them. Think about what this has cost you. Think about the relationships where you were almost happy, but could not quite let yourself get there because full happiness required full openness, and full openness felt like handing someone a loaded weapon. Think about the moments where someone looked at you with genuine love, and your first instinct was suspicion rather than gratitude, because you could not understand why anyone would love you if they really knew you. Think about the friendships that stayed on the surface because you refused to let them go deeper, not because the other person was unworthy, but because depth meant being known, and being known meant being vulnerable, and being vulnerable meant being at risk. This pattern has kept you safe, but it has also kept you hungry. Hungry for a connection that you do not allow yourself to have. Hungry for a love that you keep at arm's length even when it is standing right in front of you. And right now, this energy is telling you that the hunger does not have to continue, that being seen does not have to mean being destroyed, that there are people in this world, and maybe already in your life, who can hold your truth without weaponizing it. But you will never find out if you never let them try. Tip 7. You mistake suffering for transformation and it keeps you stuck. There is a mythology around Scorpio that is beautiful and powerful and, in many ways, absolutely true. You are the sign of death and rebirth, the phoenix that rises from the ashes, the one who transforms through destruction. And because of this mythology, many Scorpios have developed a belief that is quietly ruining their lives. The belief that suffering is a necessary ingredient for growth, that if something does not hurt, it is not real, that if a transformation does not feel like it is tearing you apart, it is not genuine, that ease and joy and lightness are somehow suspicious, somehow shallow, somehow unworthy of someone as deep as you. This belief has kept you in painful situations far longer than necessary. It has made you romanticize struggle. It has made you suspicious of happiness. It has made you believe that if something comes easily, it must not be worth having. And if someone loves you without drama, they must not really understand you. But this is not wisdom. This is a trauma response dressed up as philosophy. The truth is that transformation does not require suffering. Transformation requires willingness. It requires honesty. It requires the courage to change. But it does not require pain as a prerequisite. You can grow through joy. You can evolve through ease. You can transform through moments of quiet realization, just as powerfully as you can through moments of devastating loss. The Phoenix mythology is real, but it has been misinterpreted. The Phoenix does not seek the fire. The Phoenix survives the fire. There is a massive difference between those two things, and most Scorpios have been living the first version, unconsciously seeking out destruction because they believe it is the only path to becoming something new. Think about your relationships. How many times have you chosen the complicated, painful, dramatic connection over the stable, peaceful, loving one because the difficult one felt more real? How many times have you dismissed a good thing because it was too easy and your brain interpreted ease as a lack of depth? How many times have you stayed in suffering not because you could not leave, but because part of you believed that the suffering was making you stronger, was refining you, was preparing you for something greater? This energy is here to tell you that you have suffered enough, that you have proven your resilience 100 times over, that you do not need one more painful lesson to earn the right to be happy. Happiness is not a reward for enduring enough pain. It is a state of being that you can choose right now, today, without any more prerequisites. And choosing it does not make you less deep. It does not make you less complex. It does not make you less Scorpio. It makes you the version of Scorpio that most people never reach. The one who found transformation not in the ashes but in the light. The one who stopped confusing suffering with meaning and started finding meaning in peace. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is waiting on the other side of this one single realization. You do not have to burn to become something new. You can simply decide to grow. Tip 8. You hold grudges not because you cannot forgive, but because forgiveness feels like losing. Let us talk about the grudge. The famous Scorpio grudge that can last decades, that can outlive the offense itself, that can persist long after the person who wronged you has forgotten what they even did. The world treats this like a personality quirk, like something to joke about, like a meme. But for you it is not funny. It is not a quirk. It is a weight you carry every single day. And it is heavier than anyone around you realizes. You hold grudges not because you are petty. You hold grudges not because you cannot forgive. You hold grudges because in your mind, forgiveness equals surrender, and surrender equals defeat. And defeat is something a Scorpio simply cannot tolerate. Forgiveness, to you, feels like telling the other person that what they did was acceptable. It feels like giving them permission to hurt you again. It feels like losing the one piece of power you have left in a situation where power was taken from you. And so you hold on. You hold on to the anger. You hold on to the memory. You hold on to the detailed, vivid recollection of exactly what they said, exactly how they said it, exactly how it made you feel. And you replay it, over and over. Not because you enjoy it, but because letting it go feels like letting them win. But here is what this energy is revealing right now, and it is something you need to hear even though every part of you wants to resist it. The grudge is not punishing them. It is punishing you. The person who wronged you has moved on. They are sleeping soundly. They are living their life. They may not even remember the incident that you have been replaying in your mind for months or years or decades. The only person being held hostage by your grudge is you. You are the one carrying the weight. You are the one losing sleep. You are the one whose body tenses up every time the memory surfaces. You are the one whose mood shifts, whose energy drops, whose present moment is hijacked by something that happened in the past. And you call this strength. You call this justice. You call this holding someone accountable. But it is none of those things. It is self-imprisonment, and the bars are made of your own refusal to release what no longer serves you. Forgiveness is not about the other person. This is the part that most Scorpios never grasp because you are so focused on the other person, on what they did, on what they deserve, that you forget forgiveness was never about them in the first place. Forgiveness is about you. It is about freeing yourself from the past. It is about reclaiming the mental and emotional energy that you are currently wasting on someone who does not even know you are thinking about them. It is about choosing your own peace over the illusion of justice. And it is an illusion because the justice you seek through holding a grudge never arrives. It never satisfies. It never makes you feel whole. It just keeps you tethered to a version of yourself that is defined by what was done to you rather than by who you are choosing to become. Right now, this energy is asking you to consider what it would feel like to put the grudge down. Not to forget. Not to pretend it did not happen. Not to invite the person back into your life. But simply to stop carrying the weight. To acknowledge that the anger served a purpose, that it protected you when you needed protection, and then to thank it and release it. Because the version of you that exists on the other side of that release is lighter, freer, and more powerful than the version that is still keeping score. Some people watch, others transform. If you want to be in the second group, the 21-day guide in the pinned comment gives you a clear step-by-step process aligned with your sign. This isn't about waiting, it's about moving. Tip 9. You equate vulnerability with weakness, and it is the biggest lie you have ever believed. Every single pattern we have discussed today, the silence, the need for total control, the grudges, the testing, the cutting people off, every single one of them traces back to this one core belief that sits at the center of the Scorpio experience like a stone at the bottom of a river. The belief that vulnerability is weakness. This is the lie that has shaped your entire life. It is the lie that told you to hide your tears. It is the lie that told you to never ask for help. It is the lie that told you to handle everything alone, to never let them see you sweat, to project an image of invincibility even when you were falling apart on the inside. And it is a lie not because vulnerability does not involve risk, it absolutely does, but because avoiding vulnerability does not make you strong. It makes you rigid. It makes you brittle. It makes you someone who can withstand pressure but cannot bend, and anything that cannot bend eventually breaks. Think about the moments in your life when you were genuinely moved by someone else's courage. Chances are, those moments involved that person being vulnerable, sharing something real, admitting a fear, asking for help, showing up without armor and trusting that it would be enough. You admired them for it. You may have even envied them for it. But when it comes to yourself, you cannot imagine doing the same thing because the rules are different for you. Other people can be vulnerable because their stakes are lower, or because they are braver, or because they have not been hurt the way you have been hurt. That is the story you tell yourself. But it is just a story, and the reason you cling to it is not because it is true but because it keeps you safe from the thing you fear most, being seen and rejected in the same breath. Here is what vulnerability actually is. It is not the absence of strength. It is the highest expression of it. It takes no courage to hide behind walls. Anyone can do that. It takes no bravery to refuse to share your feelings. That is the easy road. The hard road, the road that requires actual strength, is the one where you open your mouth and say what you really feel, where you look someone in the eyes and tell them you are afraid, where you admit that you do not have everything figured out, where you ask for help not because you are weak but because you are wise enough to know that no one builds anything meaningful alone. This is the road that Scorpios are terrified of, and it is also the road that leads to everything you have ever wanted. Because the love you crave, the deep soul-level connection you fantasize about, the partnership where someone knows you completely and chooses you anyway, none of that is accessible from behind a wall. None of that can be delivered to someone who refuses to be seen. All of those things live on the other side of vulnerability, and the price of admission is the willingness to be imperfect out loud in front of another human being. Right now, this energy is not asking you to rip your armor off all at once. It is asking you to loosen one strap, to crack one door open, to share one real thing with one real person who has earned the right to hear it. Not everything, not all of it, just enough to prove to yourself that vulnerability does not lead to destruction. That the worst-case scenario your mind has been rehearsing for years is not actually what happens when you let someone in. What actually happens when you choose the right person in the right moment is connection. Real, aching, beautiful connection. The kind you have been starving for. The kind that no amount of control can manufacture. The kind that only vulnerability can create. And once you taste it, once you feel what it is like to be held instead of guarded, you will wonder why you spent so many years standing behind that wall when the door was right there the entire time. Tip 10. The control you cling to is not protecting you from pain. It is preventing you from living. And now we arrive at the heart of everything. The core truth that every section has been pointing toward. The final realization that this energy has been preparing you for since the very first word. The control you cling to, the control that defines your relationships, your decisions, your emotional life, your entire way of moving through the world. It is not protecting you from pain. It is preventing you from living. This is not an easy thing to hear. For a Scorpio, control feels like oxygen. Feels like the only thing standing between you and chaos. Without it, you believe that everything would fall apart, that people would hurt you, that the world would take advantage of your softness, that you would be swallowed whole by the very emotions you work so hard to contain. And so you grip tighter, you plan more carefully, you build higher walls, you create more rules, more tests, more conditions that must be met before you will allow yourself to relax even slightly. But here is what the gripping has actually created. It has created a life that is controlled but not free. A life that is predictable but not joyful. A life that is safe but not alive. You have traded the possibility of being hurt for the certainty of being numb, and you have convinced yourself that numb is the same thing as strong. But it is not. Numb is not strong. Numb is what happens when someone has been in survival mode for so long that they have forgotten what thriving feels like. And you, Scorpio, have been in survival mode for most of your life. Not because your circumstances demanded it, although in many cases they did, but because your nervous system got locked into that gear and never fully shifted out of it. The danger passed, but the vigilance remained. The threat ended, but the walls stayed up. The storm moved on, but you kept bracing for impact. What would happen if you stopped? Really stopped? What would happen if you put down the need to control every outcome, every conversation, every relationship, every impression people have of you? What would happen if you allowed life to surprise you? Not everything. Not all the time. But even just occasionally, what would it feel like to walk into a situation without a plan, without a strategy, without already knowing how it will end because you have rehearsed every possible scenario in your mind? It might feel terrifying at first. It might feel like falling without a net. But here is what the people who have done it will tell you. It also feels like flying. And the difference between falling and flying is not whether you have control. It is whether you have trust. Trust in yourself, in your ability to handle whatever comes. Trust in the process, in the knowledge that not everything needs to be predicted to be survived. Trust in life itself, in the radical, almost impossible belief that sometimes things work out not because you force them to but because they were always meant to. This is the transformation that this energy is inviting you into. Not a small adjustment, not a minor tweak to your approach, a fundamental shift in the way you relate to the world. From control to trust, from protection to openness, from survival to living. And it will not happen overnight. It will not happen in a single moment of realization. It will happen gradually, one small act of trust at a time, one small moment of vulnerability at a time, one small decision to let go of the reins and see what happens. And each time you do it, each time you choose trust over control, you will discover that the world does not fall apart, that people do not always betray you, that your emotions, even the big ones, even the overwhelming ones, are not as dangerous as you thought, and that the life you have been so carefully controlling was never the life you actually wanted. The life you actually wanted, the one filled with depth and passion and connection and meaning, has been waiting for you on the other side of everything you have been afraid of. And the door to that life is not locked. It never was. You just have to stop gripping the handle long enough to turn it. Everything you have heard today points to one single truth that most Scorpios will spend their entire lives circling around without ever landing on, and that truth is this: the thing you have been calling control was never really about power. It was about pain. Specifically, it was about avoiding pain. Every wall you built, every person you tested, every grudge you held, every truth you swallowed, every moment of vulnerability you denied yourself, all of it was in service of one goal: to never feel that particular kind of hurt again. The hurt of being abandoned, the hurt of being betrayed, the hurt of giving someone everything and watching them walk away as though it meant nothing. And that goal is understandable. It is human. It is the natural response of a heart that loved too deeply and was punished for it. No one should judge you for building those defenses. No one should criticize you for learning to protect yourself in a world that often did not protect you. But here is where the story has to change. Because those defenses, as necessary as they once were, have outlived their purpose. They were built for a version of your life that no longer exists. They were built by a younger version of you who did not have the tools, the awareness, the resilience that you have now. And continuing to live behind them is not honoring that younger self. It is keeping them trapped. It is telling them that the world is still as dangerous as it was back then, that people are still as untrustworthy, that love is still as risky. But none of that is entirely true anymore. The world has changed. You have changed. And the defenses that once saved your life are now preventing you from living it. This is the moment where the transformation happens. Not in some dramatic, all-at-once, burn-it-all-down explosion, but in a quiet, private, deeply personal decision to try something different. To speak when you want to stay silent. To stay when you want to run. To trust when every instinct is screaming at you to test. To forgive when every part of you wants to hold on. To be seen when every fiber of your being is begging you to hide. These are small acts, but for a Scorpio they are revolutionary. They are the equivalent of the phoenix choosing to fly instead of burn. And each time you make one of these choices, you are not losing control. You are gaining something far more valuable. You are gaining yourself. The real, unguarded, fully alive version of yourself that has been waiting behind those walls for longer than you can remember. The coming weeks are going to present you with opportunities to practice this. Moments where you could choose the old pattern or the new one. Conversations where you could hide or be honest. Relationships where you could test or trust. And in each of those moments you will feel the pull of the familiar, the comfort of the walls, the seductive safety of control. But you will also feel something else. A quiet voice barely audible beneath all the noise, whispering that there is another way. That voice is not weakness. That voice is your deepest self, the part of you that remembers what it felt like before the walls went up, the part that knows that connection is worth the risk, that love is worth the fear, that living fully is worth every moment of uncertainty it demands. Listen to that voice. Follow it. Trust it. Because it has been waiting for you to be ready, and right now, in this very moment, you are. You have two options after this video. Close it and hope things shift, or decide that the next 21 days will be different. If you choose the second, the structured 21-day transformation aligned with your sign is waiting in the pinned comment. The energy is already moving, the only question is whether you are.